let's get right into this news from Elliotte Friedman. It has been reported that Connor Hellebuyck will not re-sign with the Winnipeg Jets, and this is his final here in Winnipeg. According to Elliotte Friedman, not disputing that, shall we say, but essentially saying that, Hellebuyck's going to get here to Winnipeg, will meet, and is still maintaining an open mind. Here's what Sportsnet insider Elliotte Friedman had to say on that.
The one thing I've heard interesting about Hellebuyck is I've heard that there's going to be a conversation between Hellebuyck and the Jets whenever he gets there. And the one thing somebody told me is, as the summer has progressed, there seems to be some thought that it's not impossible Hellebuyck could stay there. And, I don't want people to get carried away. Too late, probably. I don't want to say anything with any finality there, but I do think there's going to be a conversation there about, okay, now that it's been a few months and everybody's had a summer to think about things, where are we and what is everybody thinking? And I've just been told that the word on Hellebuyck is he has an open mind and he's prepared to just listen to what they're thinking.
All right, so there's Elliotte Friedman. That's an interesting report. And listen, I'm here for it. I know, listen, I've maintained for a long time, I think Connor Hellebuyck's the best player that wears a Winnipeg Jets jersey. I think it would be a huge loss if he was to move on. If he is to move on, you hope the Winnipeg Jets can get top value for him. But to me, the best case scenario for Winnipeg is having Connor Hellebuyck stick around beyond this year. For how long? I mean, that is certainly up for discussion. Do you do a super long max 8-year deal, higher term, shorter deal? Up for all the discussions. But I'm just happy to hear Elliotte saying that could potentially still be on the table. And, certainly I think that'll change some of the discourse and maybe the narrative around Hellebuyck going into the season, if in fact there is an open mind about that. That's the latest on Hellebuyck, according to Elliotte Friedman. Friedman also touched on Mark Scheifele's situation heading into training camp in the upcoming season.
Scheifele, I don't know. I'm not as sure about that one. Again, the one thing I would just say about Scheifele is I think the Jets know internally that centers are hard to find. They thought and they hoped that Scheifele and Dubois would be their center duo for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Dubois is gone. And I think this is a very fair question for the organization to ask. I have heard that they have kind of indicated if they go from Dubois and Scheifele to no Dubois and Scheifele, they better make sure if they're making that trade, they get a replacement. So, I think that's a very fair thing for them to think of.
All right, so there's Elliotte Friedman on Scheifele's situation. And at some point, whether it is now, early in the season, at the trade deadline, if Mark Scheifele is no longer a Winnipeg Jet, there's some big choices, for Kevin Cheveldayoff as to what they're demanding. Right now, as this team with Connor Hellebuyck presently on the squad, wants to contend, wants to be a playoff team, wants to have an opportunity to get into the playoff tournament and see what happens. If they do make a deal early on, according to Elliotte, they're going to need some replacement at that center hole. And I don't think that's necessarily news, Reem. We have definitely heard that throughout the summer, that the Winnipeg Jets aren't looking to just trade these players all for future assets and whatnot. And it's very clear that, already having lost Dubois, been a lot of talk about, what's happening in the two-hole. If Mark Scheifele is no longer a Winnipeg Jet at some point, it does leave a massive hole up front in that top six. And they're going to have a plan to fill that hole if they do want to maintain being competitive this season.
It seems like the Jets do want to maintain competitive. The talk we heard all season or all off summer was, they want to get players who can play in the lineup and help them continue to try and win. And they certainly did that with the Dubois trade, getting Gabe Vilardi as the centerpiece, but two other players in Alex Iafallo and Rasmus Kupari can certainly help. And Neil Pionk on this show yesterday had some great insight on his former college teammate Iafallo. So, imagine going from, you've got these two number one centers, 1-2, Scheifele, Dubois, to, not Scheifele and Dubois. Well, who's going to play center? And the biggest conversation now, since the Dubois trade, is, well, who's the Jets' number 2 center? And it twisted Ken into an 18-minute answer on it a couple weeks ago. So I'm not sure what they're going to do. They're certainly in a tough spot. I think maybe you could work out an extension with one of them because they just seem to be married to each other, and a lot of teams don't have the flexibility that the Jets would. So Connor Hellebuyck, that he's a game breaker. He's one of the top goalies in the league. But the conversation has been for us, do you want to pay a goalie who's 30, long-term deal? And you're kind of seeing now, you saw Jake Sanderson yesterday just finish his rookie season, get an 8-year deal, and teams are now realizing, hey, you want to lock up the guys, during or after their ELCs, not, when they're finally eligible for free agency. So these two contracts, I think, will be fascinating what happens in the offseason or maybe during the season. We'll have to see.
Yeah, no doubt about that.